So I just reached the 1000-year Blood War arc, and all I gotta say is this was actually peak. So I just finished Core 1, and let's just say I'm hooked. Anyways, let me stop wasting all this time, and let's just get to the review. So it starts off with Kuretsuchi basically tweaking, because there's been a bunch of holos that have been getting completely erased. Then it cuts over to these random 2 Soul Reapers, and yeah, I don't even know their fucking name. Anyways, they get separated, then they meet up again. She's getting her ass kicked. This guy thinks he's doing something by pulling out his sword, and then he gets his ass kicked too. But then Ichigo shows up and obviously saves the day, and then this is where the actual story begins. Everyone is chilling in Ichigo's room, and then some random Ironccar enters the chat and then decides to fight Ichigo. And then Ichigo ain't no bitch, so he obviously tells him to get his bitch ass off the bed. And then before the Ironccar can respond, Ichigo karate kicks him out the window and then squares up. This is where we figure out that this dude is a Quincy. But then it just cuts over to Captain Yamamoto, where he's presented with the bootleg Akatsuki. His lieutenant gets packed up in front of his eyes, and then they declare war. After that, they kind of just leave. Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe these are the same Quincy that got their ass whooped like 1,000 years ago. After that, we get one of the greatest fight scenes in the first episode, but then turns out this Ironcar's goal the whole time was to get Ichigo to use his Bankai so he could steal it. But Ichigo turns out to be 50 Cent and survives, and his Bankai isn't stolen and obviously whoops his ass. Then it cuts over to Wako Mundo, which is under the control of the Quincy's, and in the first scene of Yuhaba's introduction, he chops off his man's arm. Like, I swear, that guy was not going nowhere. You could have killed him like tomorrow or something. Alright, let me chill before I'm next. Anyways, after this, Nell and Pesha explain that Wako Mundo's been taken over by the Quincy's and that Lady Hollybell's been captured. So obviously Ichigo with no plan goes and helps them. Which is kind of cool because it shows that Ichigo hasn't really changed much from the Ironccar saga and etc. Anyways, they arrive just in time to see this random Quincy executing a bunch of Ironcars he doesn't deem worthy, which kind of reminds me of some Austrian painter. But some of the Ironcars ended up being the same Ironcars that worked under Aizen, and they ended up trying to fight their way out of it. But obviously they lost. Like, come on, who actually expected them to win? At the end of the second episode, Ichigo finally arrives, and it sets up the fight between the Quincy and Ichigo perfectly. Now, before the fight begins, the Quincy ends up powering up, which I'm pretty sure he got from the Quincy King, but don't quote me on that. Anyways, Ichigo and the Quincy end up fighting, and in the middle of the fight, it cuts to Uryu, who is in Ryuken's library trying to figure out what actually happened 1,000 years ago. And out of nowhere, Ryuken pops up and is like, "What the fuck are you doing in my library? Get the fuck out, dumbass." "But Dad, I'm the last Quincy. I deserve to know." I wish I beat you as a kid. Anyways, after that, it cuts over to the Soul Society, where the 2 useless Soul Reapers are discussing why this war even exists. Then this dude that looks like Aizen basically explains that the Quincy's wanted to kill Hollows while Soul Reapers wanted to purify them, and since nobody could come to agreement, they went to war. And the main driving factor was that if the Quincy's were to win, the world would have ended. Anyways, it cuts back to Uryu, and it shows that he found his grandpa's journal, and he discovers the actual truth of the war 1,000 years ago. Then it cuts over to Yamamoto, where basically he goes, "Hey, dumbass, why the fuck you killed 28,000 people?" For balance, of course, otherwise we were all gonna die, you idiot. "Shut the fuck up, this is all your fault." "What you mean it's my fault? Are we forgetting that your dumbass couldn't finish the job 1,000 years ago?" Fuck you. Honestly, regardless of how crazy this sounded, Kuretsuchi was right. It was Captain Alzheimer's fault. Anyways, it cuts back to Wako Mundo, where the fight is happening, and the Quincy starts absorbing Reishi like crazy. Like, Orihime is getting cooked, Chad's Fullbring is getting cooked, everyone is getting cooked. And then before the episode ends, we get this crazy shot of Yuhaba standing over the Soul Society, and obviously he's about to beat some ass. And then not even 1 minute into the invasion, Lieutenant Kira gets a hole through his chest. Like, imagine training for years and getting bodied in under 5 seconds. And after this, the Quincy's basically go on a giant massacre. And then this stud basically says that he's about to purge them all. And then at the beginning of episode 4, we see this crazy shot where it looks like someone's dropped nukes across the whole map. And when I mean everyone died, I mean everyone died. Like, I don't know what happened in the past 1,000 years, but these Quincy's have gotten out of hand. After this, they show Renji, Byakuya, Hitsugaya, and Tosen's friend, I don't know his name, and Soifone. And for some reason, they decide to use their Bankai. And everyone already knew this, but it got stolen. Yeah, every last one of them. And at this point, everyone's panicking. Rangiku's trying to do something when she knows she can't. All the 13 court guard squads are literally tweaking, especially Mariri, because nobody is trying to listen to him. Insui literally loses his eye and nobody cares because there's so much more going on. But I'm telling you, there was nothing that compares to what happened to Byakuya. But anyways, they call Kisuke and they're begging for help. So he ends the fight instantly and sends Ichigo to the Soul Society. Turns out the Quincy is still alive. He closes the Garganta and locks Ichigo in a cage. And then this is where Byakuya gets done dirty. The man who's literally known for being neutral in every single situation possible, never smile, never cry. This dude gets filled with fear because it's the opponent's ability. And I'm gonna be honest, bro, this was one of the hardest fights to watch because, bro, Byakuya was getting cooked throughout the whole fight. Like, I don't care if one of my favorite characters gets beat up or whatever but losing in such an embarrassing manner, bruh, it's just so sad. And then seeing Renji trying to jump in afterwards, like, the fuck are you gonna do now? Bro, and the saddest part was after already using Byakuya's Bankai against him, this dude goes in for a killing blow with the Senbon Sakura Kageyoshi again. Look at my boy Byakuya, bro. This guy's supposed to be a demon. The fuck happened? And then there's Kenpachi that's just proving that he belongs in jail. Like, look at the smile on this dude's face. You could tell he's enjoying all this. And I was here for it, and yeah, until he kind of got bodied. Hey, at least Yamamoto got his yeah, I don't care, bro. Why did Kenpachi have to get bodied like that? So Yamamoto arrives, and this is the first time we actually get to see him fight, and he's fighting against Yuhabaha. I actually like this because Yamamoto is never doing anything the whole show, so it's about time he actually does something. And let me tell you, this is the greatest fight I've seen from Bleach so far. Animation, perfect. Fight, perfect. Like, I couldn't close my mouth while watching. Wait. Pause. Like, I was so hyped watching this fight. It's the reason why I'm making this video. One of the craziest parts was when all of the flames vanished and Genryusai just taps the ground and it just makes a giant crater. Like, this dude does not have no reason being this OP and being so useless the whole show. And then while in Bankai, he brings back all of Yuhabaha's old friends and makes him walk over their dead corpses. For someone who's supposed to be such a good guy, this guy has a devilish power. What the f? After finishing the dude off, turns out it wasn't even Yuhabaha, and he was downstairs talking to Aizen the whole time. You guys don't understand how hyped I am that Aizen is back, because I thought after like his defeat, they were never bringing him back. And I hope they bring him back more often because he's one of my favorite characters by far. And there's definitely room for him. He's one of the strongest, and Yuha literally let him slide because he's fused with the Hogyuku, so it would take way too long to kill him. Now back upstairs, Yuha steals Genryusai's Bankai and then cuts him in half with one slice. At this point, everyone is just feeling one emotion, and that's despair. You could tell no one has any hope left, and at this point the only thing that could happen is Ichigo comes and saves the day. And that, my friend, is exactly what happens. Ichigo breaks out of the Garganta and goes straight to Byakuya. And you could tell he's different because the first thing he asks is, how is everyone else? Ichigo obviously says, oh yeah, they're good. But then Byakuya said something that genuinely made me think he was gonna die. He's like, protect the Soul Society, Ichigo Kurosaki. And bro, I remember seeing this manga panel a long time ago and I never knew what it was about, but now I do, and this was crazy. So Ichigo doesn't even respond and just instantly teleports to Yuha, which I don't understand how he knew where he was instantly, but I digress. Ichigo then asks him if he's responsible for all of this, and then he powers up, and you'd be expecting Ichigo to at least put up somewhat of a fight, but I'ma just put it out there, he got destroyed, only surviving because of his Quincy powers, which was later explained. And I knew I remembered Yuha from somewhere. He looks exactly like Zangetsu, although I don't know if this is anything important or it's just close character models. They attempted to capture Ichigo, but Ichigo was trying to resist, so Yuha was gonna end up killing him. But since Yuha was talking to Aizen, he was already under Aizen's spell, so he lost track of time and he had to go home early, and that's the only reason why Ichigo survived. And that just shows you how much of an important character Aizen is. He doesn't even have to be there and he's affecting everything. So the Stern Ritters and Yuha decide to end up going back, but Ichigo's like, nah, you piece of shit, get back here. So out of desperation, he goes for one final swing and his sword gets snapped by the Stern Ritter. And then this is where we get the image of Ichigo literally terrified, and that face is also where the thumbnail of this video comes from. This really is the craziest way to end an episode, and I'm here for it. This is one of my favorite episodes. The next episode begins with them showing the aftermath of the attack, and Unohana explains that she was literally told personally not to go to the battlefield by Genryusai. Funsui becomes the new head captain, and then Byakuya somehow survives. Also, I heard this, but I'm not sure how true it is, but apparently Kubo got death threats because he killed off Byakuya, and that's why he came back. Then it cuts over to Miyuri basically saying that Ichigo's Bankai can't be restored because a Bankai, once it's broken, it's always broken. After that, it shows Ichigo meeting up with Squad 0, which are 5 people who happen to be stronger than any of the 13 core guard squads. And they basically say that they're taking Ichigo, Renji, Byakuya, and Rukia to heal. Ichigo obviously retaliates because he wants to stay and protect the Serite just in case. But they essentially say that that wasn't the only reason why they're taking him up there, and there was another reason as well. They were then cut off by Kisuke, who was on a broadcast. And they're essentially saying that everyone is fine over there, Orihime, Chad. And then they show this guy, which looks like Grimmjow, but I'm not exactly sure. But if it is, I'm not complaining. Like, he's one of my favorite characters as well, bro. I'd love to have him back in the show. Anyways, Ganju's sister is the one who launches them up to the royal palace. This is where it's revealed that Ichigo is actually a part of the noble Shiba clan. So I'll put this into perspective. Ichigo is now Hollow, a Noble, a Soul Reaper, and a Quincy, and a Fullbringer. Anyways, once they get to the royal palace, they basically just talk about how Sosuke Aizen tried making a fake Okin. And then they also said how the Quincy's are more evil than Aizen, which I kind of agree with, because like honestly I could understand why Aizen did what he did. But the first pillar they arrived at was the healing pawns. There was a red one and a white one. Ichigo and Renji were the only ones that were in shape to fight, so they were the only ones that went to the next level while the other two stayed behind and healed. Then it cuts over to Shunsui talking to Central 46, and this is basically how it goes. Sup, bitch? The fuck you say? We're training Kenpachi, that's final. Who the fuck do you think you are? Holy shit. Do you wanna fucking die? No. Then shut the fuck up. And the person who's gonna be training him is Unohana. Who the fuck is this bitch? The first generation Kenpachi? My bad. Anyways, after this, Unohana and Kenpachi end up fighting. And let me just tell you, this is one of my favorite fights. Unohana was definitely one of the MVPs of this score. This fight was so deep that both lieutenants from both squads knew that one of the captains was gonna die. And bro, when this fight started, you could just tell how hyped I was. This is one of my favorite fights. Unohana was literally playing with Kenpachi the whole time, and going even as far as to say that Kenpachi has gotten weaker than he was before. Like, imagine taking the name Kenpachi and then getting shit talked by the original Kenpachi in your fight. And at this point, I had no words left to say. Kenpachi was literally crying because he was gonna die without beating Unohana. And just like that, Unohana stabs Kenpachi in the throat and Kenpachi dies. Until he doesn't, because Kenpachi spawns back in before he dies, and then him not knowing what happened, so he just continues fighting. The next episode starts with Unohana smoking Kenpachi again, but then it cuts to a flashback of how Unohana and Kenpachi first met. It showed how Kenpachi gave Unohana that scar on her chest, and Kenpachi was the only equal of Unohana at the time. And while fighting, she basically mentions that Kenpachi, the only reason why he's had such tough fights and why he almost lost to Ichigo was because that he was holding himself back on purpose. And then it was also revealed that the only reason why Kenpachi survived was because Unohana healed him back. And her plan was to keep healing him back until he stops holding back. Since in her words, her greatest shame is being weaker than Kenpachi, because that's the reason why he keeps holding back. And as soon as you think there's no more content to worry about, Unohana pulls out her Bankai, and it's just pure blood, pure evil. And you best believe my mouth was wide open. Wait, pause again. Anyways, Unohana starts using this blood sword to throw blood at Kenpachi, and it's working. But then obviously in the end, Kenpachi had to kill Unohana for plot. After that, Kenpachi's sword calls out to him for the first time, and now that I look back on it, I feel like the voice sounded really similar to Yachiru's voice. The Zanpakuto ended up telling Kenpachi the name, but then it cuts over to Ichigo at some type of strip club, I don't even know. But to sum it up quickly, Ichigo ends up failing some type of test, he gets kicked out of the royal palace, he gets sent back home, which is where Isshin basically explains to him how this dude's literally a group project and how he's a little bit of everything. And then it shows Isshin being a captain, and then it also shows how Masaki was gonna get married to Uryu's dad. And then it also shows Uryu's mom being a maid. But more importantly, it shows Isshin going up against a hollow that looks exactly like the one that's inside Ichigo. But to sum it up, Isshin basically gets his ass kicked. And then it also shows that Aizen wasn't lying and that this was all his plan. And then luckily, before Isshin got completely annihilated, Ichigo's mom ended up using her Quincy powers to save him. But because of this, the hollow ended up chasing Masaki instead, and then he ended up biting her. This resulted in Masaki being able to get a killing blow, but this also resulted in the hollow detonating and transferring the power onto her. Kisuke explained the only way to stop a Quincy from dying due to holification is to link her soul energy to a Soul Reaper, but this would also result in the Soul Reaper losing all Soul Reaper powers. But Ishin didn't care. Ishin was like, yeah, I'll do it. And then that's how Ishin started living in the human realm. And then this is where it was also explained that Masaki didn't just lose to Grand Fisher. Her abilities were removed by Yuhabaha just as soon as the fight started, and that's the only reason why she died. And now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 13. The best episode out of all of them, The Blade is Me, and Peak Fiction, presented to you by yours truly. Anyways, now that that cringe fest is over, let's actually get to the content. Now Ichigo tries to do the test one more time and he passes it instantly. This is because he actually knows what he is now. So this time, instead of getting beat up, he simply walks past all of them as they bow and he finds his true Zanpakuto. Tell me why this guy looks like Gin with the hollow mask though. Anyways, everyone's trying to get upgrades, you know. Toshiro's trying to learn how to use a sword properly without Bankai. Hisagi's trying to learn Bankai. And then Tosen's doggy friend is trying to learn his ability as well. I don't even know his name still. But basically my point is everyone's trying to get upgrades so they can actually fight properly. But the main focus of this episode is to show that now that Ichigo has found his true Zanpakuto, he actually needs to forge it into his own. And then this is where we learn that Ichigo's Zanpakuto was the hollow white the whole time because it was built the same way a normal Zanpakuto is, by attaching a bunch of souls on top of another. And then this is where my theory from earlier became true, which was that Zangetsu and Yuhabaha are the same person. And then this is where it got confirmed that Zangetsu, the original one that we saw, was actually the Quincy representation of Ichigo's blood. And if you guys were paying attention earlier, I said that it was weird how Ichigo instantly found Yuhabaha, and then here was the explanation of why, and it was because Ichigo was a Quincy and his sword led it to him instantly. I forgot to mention this, but this basically confirms that the other dude that was always inside Ichigo's thoughts was the true Zanpakuto that he was using. And then we have this scene where Ichigo's inner world is basically collapsing, and then Ichigo's screaming, asking for an explanation from Zangetsu. And Zangetsu basically says that he was simply trying to protect Ichigo and he didn't want Ichigo to be a Soul Reaper. This was because he knew if Ichigo became a Soul Reaper, he would have to kill him with his own hands one day. He also explained that that's the reason why he always called White to help him with Ichigo's training, because he didn't want Ichigo to actually become a Soul Reaper. And then in this sad ass scene, he basically says that he's happy with how strong Ichigo is now and that he's gonna let him become a Soul Reaper now. And then you see Ichigo chasing after the decaying Yuhabaha. And dude, this was sad as hell because everyone knows that this guy wasn't a bad person because he saved Ichigo on multiple occasions. He was simply trying to protect him. And then we get this flashback of how old man Zangetsu is the one who saved Ichigo in the Kenpachi fight. It's just kind of crazy to think that that was Yuhabaha's representation the whole time and no one knew. But what this means is that there's no more restrictions on Ichigo now, and that was around like 1% of his power, so he is around 100 times stronger now. So Core 2 is probably going to be insane. So then we finally get to see Ichigo forge his new Zanpakuto, and then this time it's actually his Soul Reaper powers, and there were actually dual Zanpakutos, which there's only 2 of them in existence, so this makes it the 3rd. Anyways, let me know if I missed anything in this video and I'll make sure to add it into the next. Comment down below nuts if you watched the whole video. And dude, I'm so excited for season 2 because I already know it's going to be 10 times better than season 1, and I don't even know how they're going to do it. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a sub and especially drop a like if you genuinely like the video, because it'll get me more impressions and that's what I need. I'm actually begging. I'm just playing, but this is the end of the video and I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll hit you guys with another one pretty soon.